It's interesting because I think um, there's definitely a trajectory that one needs to acknowledge, in the sense that, the art of today comes from somewhere, and that somewhere is rooted in a culture and in a history. And so when you look at what's called traditional African art, it's because that work that we look at as being traditional speaks to more sort of a cultural practice that's steeped in the specific history and culture of those people, where what we call art has a very specific function within that community. Whether it's a function of religious rites, whether it's a function of ceremonial practice, and in some instances, whether it's a function of just aesthetic beauty and celebration of life. All those are very relevant and continue to be practiced. But I think what shifts the vision is that we also live in modern times. We also live in urban environments. We are also influenced by European artistic traditions. So now when you have that as well built into the psyche of the people, there's bound to be a shift and a change in terms of how these objects that have this specific function either evolve and maybe no longer function within that same visual vocabulary, because now new elements are introduced that speak to maybe a more contemporary, I would say, a contemporary outlook. It doesn't take away from what has been the culture and the tradition, but it just introduces a new element in terms of thinking about how the contemporary moment is also shifting and changing how we see and how we communicate between each other. So, for instance, as much as I've lived in the West for so many years and live mostly in urban environment, but when I go to my traditional home, and see how we slaughter the animal and how we worship our ancestors, it doesn't mean that demeans these rituals and rites, and how I participate in them, because they are part of me and I engage in them. So it's just, this is what I'm saying, that there's a precedence, and so we have to understand that all this is part of a continuum, and that culture is not static, that it evolves, and this is part of the evolution.